Welcome to day 3 of the Briamar Bag Sew Along. Today we are going to be working on attaching our side panels to the bag and closing up the exterior bottom. So the pieces we will need today is we're going to need the completed assembly that we've been working on the past 2 days, and we're also going to need our 2 side pieces. When we flip our side pieces over, we can see that we have 1 rivet stabilizer attached to the top, and we can also see that I have drawn 2 lines at the bottom. Now these lines are 1/4 inch up from the bottom, and I did make 2 center marks. On my rivet stabilizer, I did use the markings in the pattern. You can use the pattern piece or you can just use her measurements. It is 1.5 inches down, and I made a small mark there. And I'm going to now use my rivet, I don't even know what this is called, hole punch maybe? But I'm just going to use that to make a small hole right there on the dot. So I just put it there, I just press it, no fancy magic. And then I make my hole. I go ahead and punch that hole out. Sometimes it doesn't go through all the way just because it's a thin material. So that is that hole. That part is done. Now, what we're going to do is the part with the rivet stabilizer. We are going to top stitch at the top, but we are going to do that 3/4 inch down. Do not be like me on my other ones and sew it too high. 3/4 inch down, you're going to be top stitching. So let's do that now. Going to lengthen my stitch length, and I'm going to line that up. Okay, that is my prep work on that. Now what I'm going to do is bring my assembly over. I'm going to take this piece that I just top stitched with the rivet stabilizer on it, and I'm going to place it right sides down, or you can say right sides together. And I'm going to line my top and my sides, and I'm just going to clip that in place. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, and then I'm going to take that over to the machine and stitch these sides with 1/4 inch. That's a little too short. But we're not going all the way down. We are going to stitch just down to this line I drew. So 1/4 inch all the way down here, stop here. Be sure to back stitch right here. We want to lock in that stitch well. Make sure you go back to your regular stitch length if you lengthened yours like I did. Again, stop when you get to that line. Do the same on the other side. Just to repeat that, we are top stitching from the top edge all the way down to that line. I know I drew that line earlier, but just to make sure you do go to the top. Okay, now, decision time. I choose to top stitch these. I open this up, and which way do I push my seam allowance? Okay, to the side. So my seam allowance is going to go to my side panel. And I'm going to top stitch this open. She says you can use double-sided tape or glue to do that, but I go ahead and top stitch. I love the way that looks, but I will tell you, if you top stitch this on this side, you will not be able to top stitch the other side once we close that up. It is, well, you may be able to find a way, but I haven't. It's just too tricky, so I don't do that. So if it will bother you from one side to have top stitching and the other side, the back, to not have top stitching, you'll want to avoid that. That doesn't bother me. I don't care that it, you know, I want it to look good on this side and the back side. If it's all not top stitch, that doesn't offend me any. So I'm top stitching. You can make your choice on that, but one way or the other, the seam needs to be touching your side. Look what I just did. I just went over that. Good point there to show you that we all make mistakes. So let me just rip that out, because if you remember, I wanted to leave that unstitched. So I just need to pick out those few stitches right there and get that. Okay. So what I'm going to do now, just to lock that in, is I'm just going to stop right there, because I know that's my mark. If you want, you can just go ahead and flip it over and sew from that one. And it's okay. Okay, now let's do this side. From this side, press it down, make sure that I do not go past that 1/4 of an inch. You can see I'm not starting all the way down. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, I'll clean those stitches in just a minute. Okay, so this is what we have so far. We have our side panels, we have our top, we have our bottom. So now what I'm going to do is work on closing my bottom. I'm going to work on one side at a time. So I am going to take my bottom right here, and I'm going to pull it and line it up here. So let's go ahead and line and clip. So what I'm doing, I'm pulling it and stretching it to get those corners and that top flush right there. So let's put a clip right here. Let's go ahead and get these sides lined up and matching perfectly. And put my clips in there. Now again, we are not going to sew past that line that we drew at the bottom, that 1/4 of an inch. You can see that. So we are going to make sure we're sewing with our 1/4 inch seam allowance again, but we're stopping when we get to that line. So both sides of these are opened. Yes, good, good, good. Flip it over. Now we're going to do the same exact thing with this other side. Match up our tops and our corners first. Okay, now what we're going to do stitch on this side too. Again, we will not go past that line we drew at the bottom. Back stitch on the top and the bottom. So this is a part of the bag I was talking about where I cannot top stitch this other side. Your sewing skills may be a little bit better than mine, but I'm just not even going to bother with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a strip of double-sided tape. I'm going to flip that around. I'm going to add a strip of double-sided tape right here so I can push this seam to the side panel just like this part is pushed down. Okay? So double-sided tape. Cut it a little bit too long there. And just push that down to the best of my ability. You don't have to do this. This is an extra step. Okay, so there it is pushed on that side. Flip it over. Let's do the same on this seam. I'll be honest with you guys, I do not use double-sided tape this much in my regular sewing. I'm just trying to show you all the tips and tricks to kind of help it for your first bag or for this first pattern. After you made a couple, you probably won't want to use it either. It's just a pain sometimes. Again, push that seam down. Let's push it against the bed. There we go. Okay. So that is down. The next thing I want to do is I want to pick my bag up. I want you to be able to see this clearly. So I'm going to show you a couple different ways. I'm going to push that exterior down and flatten it out. Okay, you see how it's kind of flaring right there? I'm going to snip the corners of my exterior panel. Let's just put a clip right there in the middle so I get a free hand. Let's flatten this out and let's just make a little snip, a tiny snip right here in the corner of my exterior, no more than 1/4 of an inch, to help that kind of spread and lay a little better. Same thing on this side. I'm trying to get it to where you can see it, so that's why I'm holding my scissors kind of weird. Pull that up, and let's go ahead and sew that down. I'm going to sew that. So you can see this seam. I'm going to sew that so that just my stitching is going to go all the way across to meet this other side. So let's get that looking real pretty. Flatten it out. And this is going to make my box corners in my bag. So I'm going to line up my needle so it's just going to intersect with that stitching I already have, that I have on my side panels. Okay. Now if you look at what I'm doing, when I'm intersecting that, it is going to end up putting me right at this 1/4 of an inch line. My bag is hanging out a little bit. That's okay. It's not going to affect the way it looks at the end. I'm just losing a little bit of that exterior there. So to neaten that up, I'm just going to snip across there, trim that down to about 1/8 of an inch. Now when I flip that up, you can see that I have a nice little flat straight box corner there. Let's do it on their side. Okay. I'm going to push that down, get that part straight first, right there in the middle. Flare out to this. Flip that little corner. Flip this other little corner. Smash it all down, and then take it over the sewing machine. Once I get it over here, I can make sure I get everything straight and even so I get a pretty stitch. Again, I'm going to intersect with my other stitches that are going down my side seam. Snip right across there, clean that up. And let's see, that looks pretty straight there too. Let me open it up and make sure. Yeah, I got a little bit. I'm going to straighten this up just a little bit because I can see. Let me push it down here for you guys to see. Can you see how that's kind of just curving up a little? You might not be able to, but I want to straighten that up before I move on. I want to make sure it's perfectly straight on that boxed corner. That was just my wonky sew. Yes, much better. Okay. So now we're going to flip this out. The way you're supposed to flip out bags, take your thumbs on the inside, your fingers on the outside, and push that corner seam out first. And then go from the rest of it. I just get kind of lazy and just start tugging on all of it. The only reason we're turning this bag out right now is just for our picture and to look at everything. We're going to turn it back the other way for our next step. Anyway, here is our bag so far. We have our top stitching on our sides, our pocket done. We have our flat little corners. Oops, sorry. We have our flat little corners. If you turn around, you can see that I do not have the top stitching here on these sides. Okay, so this is it. This is all our tasks for the day. So if you will take a picture of this and put it in the group under the comment for under the post for today, we will end here and I will see you again on tomorrow.